Game of Thrones but in Japan? Sign me up! Hey yo, what's good? Welcome to The Gist. With me, Jared. The hit series on FX has wrapped up and man was it awesome. Shogun brings us a story of power dynamics in Japan. After their ruler passes away, 5 groups have agreed to maintain an era of peace until the rightful heir has come of the age to rule. However, things don't stay peaceful as the scheming and plotting begins. And on top of that, a sailor with his own motives washes ashore, complicating things even further.
Do not be fooled by our politeness. Our bows are made of rituals. Death is in our air. And sea and earth. Just remember. We live and we die. We control nothing beyond that.
Shogun was awesome. The scheming and machinations were my favorite part of the show. Seeing the power plays of the different groups was so engaging and compelling. I enjoyed the power dynamics of the main regents. I didn't know there was a religious component either, so that only added to my interest and intrigue for the show. Shogun is very well acted. Hiroyuki Sanada did so good as Toranaga. Anna Sawai was awesome as Mariko. One of my favorite characters was Yabushige. I really enjoyed seeing his character play the power game as well. And the implications his decisions had on his relationships with the other characters was so entertaining. Fumi Nikaido was also a standout performance. She brought a subtle, sinister, and conniving aura to her character in Oshiba. I was hoping they would have leaned into that a bit more, especially as it relates to her position of authority in Japan, but maybe we'll get that in Season 2. Now when it comes to Blackthorn, the performance was good, but I just didn't really care too much for his character's plotline in the show. It started out fairly intriguing because of how his motivations affect those of the regents in Japan. After a certain point though, I just lost interest. The romantic angle didn't help, as I wasn't sold on that either. The best part of the Blackthorn storyline was how his ideology and beliefs contrasted with those of the Japanese. The honor and duty-bound belief set versus his self-serving mindset was a very thought-provoking aspect of the story. The narrative is paced pretty good. It does take a bit to build the world and the characters. There are moments where the passage of time seems to jump a good bit, so you do have to focus on the lines of dialogue that detail how much time has transpired, but it's not really to the detriment of the story. You can still understand what's going on, even though some things seem to happen pretty fast. Shogun is predominantly in Japanese. There is English subtitling, but if you're not up to reading along with the show, you're going to have a hard time. There were many times that I had to rewind to make sure I got the bit of dialogue that I didn't quite understand or catch the first time around. That being said, another nitpick I have with the show is that the motivations of the different leaders can be a bit hard to follow. There are quite a bit of characters to keep track of, so I did find it challenging to remember the alliances and factions in the show, along with their motivations, as well as understanding the reasoning behind their decisions. I will say Shogun does a great job at delivering on the things being set up. The second half of the show in particular had a plotline that I was really invested in, and that had me really frustrated and pulling my hair out. But by the end of the season, that plotline was brought to a pretty satisfying payoff. There are a few twists that I wasn't expecting too. That made the dynamic of the show all the more enjoyable. And that's the gist to my spoiler-free review of Shogun. This show is remarkable. Peak verisimilitude. From the shot selection, costuming, performances, and obviously the storyline, Shogun is definitely a worthwhile watch. If you're okay with watching a show that's predominantly in Japanese, I would highly recommend giving Shogun a try. I'd like to know what you think. Did you like Shogun? Who was your favorite character? Hit me up! Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll catch you next time on The Gist.